Our guests for this hour are seated. Yes. And we're going to be looking at the road towards the AUC chairmanship and what it means for Raila Odinga, implications for Kenya and Africa. Political risk analyst Dismas Mokua is in the hot seat. And in the other hot seat is Professor Gitile Naituli, who is a governance analyst. Good to have you in the room this morning. Good morning, gentlemen, both of you.
Good morning.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
Everybody's doing okay, I think. Okay. That's great.
Yeah.
I'm in the minority at this point, but it's okay. We'll deal.
No, you're in the majority.
Well, in terms of...
About feeling okay, I guess. That's what you want to say.
I was going to play... I was playing the gender card at the moment.
Gender card, yes.
But you know...
it's not in the Constitution.
But I will see. I will hold my own. We're like, not. Okay. Let's welcome you to the Situation Room in true Situation Room style. CT has proverbs from Algeria.
Yes. Mm-hmm. The People's Republic of Algeria.
Yes.
Yes, a mishmash, a crossroad of cultures and civilizations dating back to the BC era. Phoenicians, Romans, Vandals, Byzantine, Greeks, Turks. All these people at some point or the other, before the French came along, had been part and parcel of Algeria. But even before all this were the Berbers. Spelt Berber, but pronounced in English Berbers.
Berber.
Yeah, these are the unique natives of this particular country. But now they're a minority in Algeria. 70%, 75% are actually Arabs. The proverb for the day. A secret of two is soon a secret of nobody.
Let's start with you, Dismas. What do you think about that? What does it mean? How would you interpret that?
In my community, there's a proverb that you don't respond to a proverb when your senior is around. So I'll let Professor respond to that.
It could be that the Prof wants to see if you're actually on the right path, according to his opinion.
No, but my culture doesn't allow me. If I do that, then I'll be required to slaughter
you will not be
a
able
few goats.
To drink amongst the elders, should you go back?
When I go back, I will not be allowed to sit in a baraza.
Okay.
So your elders watch TV in the morning.
Oh, they are switched on. They've got Starlink.
In all ways. Wow. Okay, we'll allow you that. Prof, seeing as he's dodging, because we know what he's doing, he wants to see what you're going to say and then pick up off on that. So what would your interpretation of the proverb be?
The secret of two is not a secret.
Yes.
That's why Jesus was very good at telling people that what I've done to you, don't tell anyone else, because he intended them to broadcast it. He intended them to tell everybody.
Well said.
They normally say that a secret of two is only valid if one party is dead.
Yeah.
Then it's
Well, our lived experience, as we were saying in the previous hour, whenever someone is told something in confidence, he looks for his 10 best friends and swears them to secrecy.
Exactly.
And they in turn look for their 10 best friends and also swear them to secrecy.
Jesus knew that very well.
They normally say, between you and I.
Yes.
Actually, that's something we did, and I'm sure Ken would confirm this, that
when it was between two of you?
No. In communication advisory, or when you're training VIPs for media interviews, they normally make a mistake when they meet a journalist and they say, between you and I, this is the actual position. But when we go on air, I'm not going to repeat the same. And you see already the journalist has the story.
Yep.
It's the between you and I. That's where the story is. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I guess we're kind of on the same page. One thing that is no secret in the country today, and maybe then at the shores of the continent, is that Raila, however you want to look at it, when we use the word unleashed, has been unleashed on the continent, as it were. It's carried everywhere today. Raila's show of power at State House yesterday. Raila unleashed. I am made for Africa. It goes on and on and on. And it seems as though it is at this moment then that the world then will get this information about who Raila is and what it is that he is going to be able to do. Let's just get overview in terms of sentiment about what is currently going on. I mean, we saw the launch of the bid, which was the official launch of the bid. Now go ye forth and conquer the continent is essentially what happened at State House yesterday. Let's start with you, Prof. give your overall sentiments about this particular thing, and let's see what then it would mean for Kenya and Africa.
Yes, after we lost to Chad in the last time around, Mohammed lost to Mohammed Faki, the EU appropriately changed the rules, and they say in the regions we rob the attorney. So there's the attorney for East Africa. And the response from East African member states was good. When we called them to come and support us, they showed up to support us. So the endlines are correct. We have unleashed Raila on the continent. and Raila is a Pan-Africanist. He has cut his profile appropriately for that job. And I think if we were to compare him with the other 3 candidates, then he is a front runner, as it were. So is thoroughly qualified for the position, and I think if we market him carefully, carefully means that sometimes we need to avoid some bombastic, we over exaggerate certain things. We need to reduce that so that other Africans can. Being humble and seeking with humility possession sometimes is received better than over-exaggerating the situation. So we need to reduce the over-exaggeration, and I think Raila is quite capable of selling himself because he's very well known, not just as a prime minister, but as a crusader for democracy on the continent.
Prof, you've said something that has interested me. You said the Africa Union changed the rules after Mohamed Faki versus Amina. Were these rules in paper? And then secondly, you said it's East Africa community time. Was it this rule, was it in paper? Or secondly, is it a gentleman kind of agreement? And is it based on regions or based on language?
Is it a rotating chairman?
Actually, it is region. It's not language. Because if you say, East Africa includes Mozambique, which in our colonial past is supposed to be what they call, what is that? There's Francophone, Anglophone,
yes.
Lusophone, yes. So it's not based on language. It's actually region. They split Africa into 4 regions.
Okay.
The north, the south, the east, and the west. And so there is also another rule there, which I think they seem to have removed also, that a man, if this time was a man, then the next time is a woman.
Okay.
So they removed that one also, meaning that giving Raila really a very nice space to compete.
It was easy to remove that because it wasn't on paper. I think this was basically a gentleman agreement as opposed to put in their...
The gender was on paper.
Was on paper.
Yeah, but the other one, the region one,
was not on
paper.
Okay.
So there is an understanding from what you're saying that it should rotate, kind of like in Nigeria, because of the whole thing. There's an understanding that the presidency will go from north to south to north to south. We're expecting that the next president of Nigeria, for example, will come from the north. So there's an
even in Tanzania.
There's that kind of understanding.
There's an unwritten thing.
Unwritten rule.
Yes.
So
Muslim,
from the
Christian.
Right. So from the AU chairmanship position, now there is an understanding that it would go to East Africa.
Yes, there is.
Okay.
And it is, and they are all agreed on that. I mean, the African heads of state have agreed on that.
Okay. The African heads of state have agreed on that. That's interesting. Then why would it be that there seems to be then so
contest.
much? Yeah.
Why is it a
contest? The contest now is for East Africa now.
No, not really.
No, it's for East Africa because in Djibouti, is Madagascar, Mauritius, or East Africa, and Kenya.
Oh, they're classified in the East.
Because Somalia was also in the race, but it's withdrawn in favor of Kenya.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's all East Africa.
Mauritius, Madagascar, and Djibouti are all classified in the East.
They are East Africa.
East, yeah.
Oh, so that's why it's in the East.
Even Ethiopia. Ethiopia is in the East.
All right.
Understandable.
Dismas, I'd like to get your thoughts about, where this all is in terms of sentiment, about, being pushed forward. Prof said a very interesting thing here, and said that we can push for this thing, but there doesn't need to be so much fanfare. It doesn't need to be so, over the top. Push for the thing. If you get it, fantastic. But, use of state resources, doing all of this hullabaloo that we saw yesterday, making so much noise not necessary. No?
You know, from a communication perspective or a marketing perspective, when you're launching a product, you don't do it in the cover of darkness. You invite the key stakeholders. And in my view, what happened yesterday at State House was a display. It was optical power for all and sundry to know that the East African community is behind Mr. Raila Odinga. So for me, I don't find anything wrong. I don't find any exaggeration, as our professor has suggested. If I were the head of state and government in Kenya, I would have done the same. It's important to get your colleague heads of state to come and make those statements in public. That was the first observation. Then the second observation is that retired President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta has not yet sent his message of goodwill, or he has not even indicated that he's supporting Mr. Raila Odinga. One would have expected that because he's peers with almost all the heads of state and government in Africa, he would actually offer his support. So his silence is very deafening. And then number 3, some of the names that come up to be part of Mr. Raila Odinga's strategy team, they do not inspire confidence, because it's very clear, it must be very clear that Mr. Odinga is not running a campaign in Kenya, but is running a continental campaign. So one would have expected that in his team, he's got subject matter experts from all over the region. That you have people from maybe West Africa, from South Africa, from Northern Africa. People can help him understand the different cultural dynamics. Like, for instance, if you want to approach the heads of state in North Africa, there's their way of doing things. They've got some sort of anthropology. If you want to do the same in South Africa, you need this kind of people. So, well, it's not late in the day. I'm hoping that he's going to reconstitute his team so that he can hit the high notes. If he assumes that he's running a normal campaign in Kenya, that your team is made up of people who may not have demonstrated capacity and competence in expected subjects, then the outcome will disappoint Kenya and the region.
I think he has the team. He has Obasanjo from Nigeria for West Africa.
I don't know that Obasanjo represents the whole of West Africa, especially seeing as things happened in the way in which they have over the last few months.
No, the West African groups and ECOWAS. So Obasanjo, I think, is a big voice within the ECOWAS.
Well, again, we understand that...
then in South Africa, he has Ramaphosa for the Central region, because Ramaphosa has already said he will support him. But I agree with you and don't dispute what you are saying. So maybe in West Africa itself, not West Africa. I don't know which West Africa, because because it's Southern Santa includes Angola and now Cameroon is in ECOWAS.
Yes, it is.
But Santa includes Angola. So West Africa is governed, Southern Africa is governed, East Africa we are here. So maybe Northern Africa, maybe Egypt, Tunisia, and Morocco, that axis.
Yeah, but Professor, outside General Obasanjo and President Ramaphosa, I'm talking about the technical teams, the one who actually do the heavy lifting, the one who prepare the briefs, and who would probably confirm. The conversation is that General Obasanjo and President Tinubu enjoy a frosty relationship. Then a few days ago, President Obasanjo had a cup of tea with the First Lady. Again, there were conversations. So nobody's sure of the relationship between General Obasanjo and the President, and also the neighboring community. But I'm not worried about the big boys, for lack of a better word. I'm looking at the people who do the actual documents. Some people in that team, they create the impression that if they land at an airport, say in Nigeria, the first thing they'll probably do is take a picture and post it on social media that we are now landed at a particular place. But I'm looking at somebody, social scientists. Like for instance, there are many Kenyans, if they tell you, if you haven't met Ken for a while, then he says, tuongee kwa simu. It doesn't mean anything. So you need people who really understand the local dynamics to assist you craft and execute a winning strategy.
Okay.
I may be wrong, but I suspect I'm right, because I've interacted with people from all these different countries, and the expectations are very brittle.
Okay. It's interesting how local politics can then now play out on a continental level, and maybe you can go into that. But I've seen an interesting comment, and somebody says, I think it's necessary for us to know what the map of Africa actually looks like. And I think that's very interesting, because we thought that we know geographically where everything stands, right? North, south, east, and west. I think everybody needs to go back and look at your map. So that we can understand who we're talking about and who is where, because it's very, very important. And even when we have the geographical states of Africa, we still have barriers that are created by language and culture. Remember, Africa was divvied up by somebody who had no knowledge of what was going on.
Yeah, the Berlin Conference.
Okay? And that they cut across cultures which shared in huge landmass. Right? That's why you still have some of the things that you see in East Africa today, where it's cut by a border, but people still share the same culture. And now why I say that is that in this whole AUC chairmanship, we cannot run away from the differences that language have posed in the areas of Francophone Africa and Anglophone Africa, because it is a big debate here that who will the other side support. So if you're in Senegal, you could be in ECOWAS, but you're still in Francophone Africa. And so which carries the day? If you're in Côte d'Ivoire, you are in ECOWAS, but you're in Francophone Africa. If you are in
Mozambique.
Exactly. If you're in Mozambique, yes, you're in Southern Africa, but you're in Lusophone Africa. So does language have a place to play? And I've heard that it does in this selection of the AUC chair, that folks are looking for who will represent them on a broader basis. And does it have anything to do with this? And should it be paid any attention to?
I think it shouldn't. It shouldn't be paid attention, I think. That is because, you see, when you are the chair of that commission is the implementing agency of the African Union. It is like what? You see, you have the African Union, then you have the executive commission to implement the decisions of the African Union, and therefore for somebody holding that position, because that's the work, that is the horse, what is it called in language, my friend, the workhorse of the union.
Secretariat.
Yeah, the secretariat is the workhorse of the union. So you need to understand a lot of those dynamics. I agree with you, because without understanding those dynamics, it becomes complicated. And that's why I think you said something very important. The local issues would play a big undermine. For example, we've been much happier if we would have been neutral in the war going on between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Because you see, Muslims, for example, as a religion, is very strong brotherhood. It has a very strong brotherhood concept, very strong. We could have been a little bit more conscious about that. The Christianity is not so much. I think it's because we don't really believe in it in Africa. We just pretend. We are not like the Muslim. We don't live the religion here. I know that could surprise many, but that is actually the truth. I look at Meru, where I come from. You do something there. You go to court, you swear with the Bible to tell the truth, the whole truth, you put it down, you lie, you go home. When you go home, we take you to Nyorinchege, we take you to a pot, we give you a small stick, which everybody is working on. We tell you, put this one inside here, if you are telling the truth, and say that if I'm lying,
let it boil
myself and everyone related to me should go in this pot with this stick. You say, no, I lied. So you make yourself the judge, because that one is tied to you. That is inside you. So Christianity has never been inside us, but the other one is very strongly inside the people. So that need to become, if I was campaigning for Raila, like he said, you are a communication expert, I think. I'm beginning to grasp what you are saying here. Then I'll delve into those things, and I'll try to see how do I massage some of those. Yes, some of the toes which we may have stepped on over time.
Okay. It has taken Kenya really by storm, this thing, and maybe a little bit of a storm, but still a storm, whereby suddenly now that is the conversation. Let's bring it local, this AUC chairmanship, okay? This is an individual who, for the longest time, has been in the opposition in terms of politics in the country, and has maybe and has been an arch rival, arch enemy of those who have been in power, because unfortunately to date he has not been. Suddenly we see all this support rallied around him, and I know the conversations of, okay, is the opposition dead? Did we see all of these things happen so that the chairmanship could get a boost, But suddenly we see state resources, state attention, everybody paying attention to this thing and saying, okay, you know what? Here's an opportunity to put Kenya on the map. Is it an opportunity to put Kenya on the map, or is it an opportunity to take this person who has been insisting that you do 1, 2, 3 out of the picture?
Well, in my view, in as much as Mr. Odinga has not had state power, one can easily say or come to the conclusion that he's been one of the most powerful men in Kenya, with or without, state power, from the time he took over management of political parties like NDP. You recall at some stage you were told that Mr. Raila Odinga is probably the only man in Kenya who can declare a public holiday outside an official Kenya Gazette. So he's been a very powerful man. And in my view, any Kenyan who is looking for an international assignment should be supported by the state to the hilt. And the President of the Republic of Kenya has got a constitutional, moral, and economic responsibility to support anybody who is looking for an international assignment. And if you compare Kenya to other countries in, especially the Western Africa, there are very few Kenyans comparatively holding senior roles in these bodies like the UN, World Bank, IMF, even in the corporate world, for several reasons that are maybe when we were brought up, you speak your mother tongue, Sheng, English, and Kiswahili. So majority of Kenya don't speak another language, say French or Germany, which can create opportunities. Maybe we need to look at our legal framework and ensure that outside the languages we speak, people can speak other languages, so we create opportunities for them. So if there's any Kenyan who is looking for an international assignment, I think they must be supported. And in as much as we say that we need to create opportunities in Kenya first, with globalization, you can pretty much work anywhere. So if Mr. Raila is interested in this opportunity, the fact that he's had a high-octane competition with all these leaders does not mean that then it takes President Ruto takes a back seat and tells him that you're on your own. But again, Raila has faced a lot of criticism that when Kenya needs you, now you are taking a walk. The political situation in Kenya demands that you be around. We want to have a conversation with you in 2027. But when you revisit the works of Adam Smith, he says human beings are supposed to be rational human beings, and they pursue their selfish interest. Mr. Odinga has wanted to be president from the time he was born. You've not given him the opportunity. Maybe his selfish interests have indicated, now go to the Africa Union, let him go. If there's a vacuum to be created in Kenya, you have many people. Kalonzo yesterday declared himself as the opposition leader. He must now demonstrate the killer instinct that he wants to become an opposition leader who can give President Ruto effective opposition, or rather a run in 2027. And also his exit is very good, because when you talk about ODM and Mr. Raila Odinga, understand their synonyms. So it's the glue holding ODM together. So right now there are people who are very excited that his exit from active ODM politics is actually going to make the D in ODM come to reality. That ODM now for the first time is going to be a democratic party. There are people who will have free, fair, credible elections, and then you'll have people coming up. So which is a good thing. So in my view, the people are saying, wait a minute, Mr. Odinga, this is when we need you. He's requested for your votes times above number. You've not given him the opportunity. Let him go elsewhere. President Museveni indicated yesterday that this thing is not about career progression. Mr. Raila Odinga has been a Pan-Africanist, and I've had the occasion of sitting, in his proximity. When he talks about Pan-Africanism, you can see the energy coming out of his face. You can see the emotion.
It's genuine.
And you can see that he's genuine.
Okay.
So as he turns 80, let him go and deliver on the African, the African agenda. Although, again, probability of him being a success under the circumstances is just 50%.
All the King's men are here, and we're discussing issues having to do with the AUC chairmanship and what it actually means for the continent, or does it? We're talking about that it's important. What does it do? What does it mean for Kenya if Kenya is actually, or the person from Kenya sits in that position. Ken, I know you had a question, even as we get to that. What does it mean if a Kenyan is sitting in the position of the AUC chair? What does that mean? Does it raise the profile of the country? Does it make now Kenya more respected on the continent?
Before I even ask that question, I'd like to bring to your attention, gentlemen, the opinion page of all the newspapers today. And it's all about what happened yesterday. This, as Standard puts it, unleashing Raila Odinga. So the cartoonists have captured this as good riddance for President William Ruto. And my question this morning is, has Raila Odinga once again used this to sort out his 2027 political problem? Before we even go to what this brings to Kenya or means.
Before answering that, I want to discount something, misconception we have in this country about opposition. Because we are just saying that, Raila is being, good riddance because supposed to be in the opposition. Raila was in the opposition before multi-party, before 1992. After that, Raila has been in every government in Kenya since that time. So the idea of the opposition, I don't know where it's come from. Now, this is the opposition, the way you see it, like in the US, when the Democratic Party loses the election of the Republican, they stay there and they wait for the next election. They don't join government in any form. So in Kenya, our concept of opposition is like one of a prison, where we are fighting who is going to be the chief prison warder. But not somebody is about to break the prison walls so that everybody is free. Now, because we are fighting to be who is going to be the chief warden, it doesn't matter whether you are in the government or you are not, because you're not going to make any difference. Now, to address your question, because you're asking whether it's good riddance, or whether Raila is setting the stage for 22. I actually don't think so.
If Ruto is sorting out his political problem in 2027,
I don't think that will sort the problem if Raila goes over there, because Ruto's problem is not Raila Odinga. Ruto's problem is the Kenyan economy. If you don't sort out the Kenyan economy, you can send Raila to America, you can send them to AU. It's not going to make any difference on how the 2027 works out. You see, that idea of tribal positioning, is gone. It's absolutely gone. Because we have this Kebaken generation, the generation you see, and I'm calling it the Kebaken generation, because these are the most educated Kenyans ever. They came, access free education from Mwai Kibaki. 100% transition from primary to secondary, Mwai Kibaki. Expansion of university and the introduction of the parallel program, meaning 99% of these youngsters access university education. These people are tribal. When they tell you they are tribalists, they actually mean it. So when you dissolve the tribe, it's irrelevant whether Raila goes or you think Ruto will inherit Raila as a constituency. This time is a totally different ballgame. William Ruto needs to understand his problem if he's going to seek re-election 2027. His problem is the economy.
There's another...
It's not Raila Odinga.
There's another perspective. Mr. Raila said that he's exporting top talent to join the Kenya Kwanza cabinet. So he sent a number of his party leaders to join the administration. And then there was a mandamano. There were the protests all over the country. Some folks were interviewed in Kisumu because there were no protests. They said, why should we do the mandamano if Raila has sent his people to the administration? Sai sasa tuko serikali, patia Raila muda na rais muda wafanye kazi yao. So in as much as we may want to take comfort in the theoretical aspects that tribalism in Kenya has been dismantled, maybe it's to a very small percentage. Because soon after these gentlemen and a lady joined the administration, there was a part of his powerful supporters indicated, we are now going to give you time. President Ruto is right now planning to visit parts of Nyanza province where I come from, and understand everybody is rolling out a red carpet simply because of Mr. Raila Odinga. If Raila Odinga today decides at the flick of his fingers to change his position, those red carpets will be rolled back. So in theory, there's no tribalism in Kenya right from 1963. People vote with their selfish interest in mind. But even the middle class in Kenya, when you approach elections, they recline to their tribal cocoons. And this is something that President Museveni spoke about yesterday. That what are you going to benefit from your tribe? But you notice all the powerful political persons in Kenya, before you rise to the national table, first of all, you have to be a tribal chief and a tribal god. You mobilize your people, and you hear people talking of Mulima or Murima, all these kind of things, because people know that in Kenya, most of the time is about your second name. Even look at the political party formation.
You say this as though what you're saying is a bad thing.
No, I'm just trying to push back on what Professor has indicated, that from the next election, it's just going to be...
Dynamics change.
Yeah, the variables have changed, and also about the economy. Even when the economy is bleeding, when the rubber is meeting the road, people go back to their tribal cocoons or cocaines.
I think go with cocoons.
Is that what the professor actually said?
No, that's not what I said.
That's not what he said.
But also, when Mokua is a way of here, you're not being a good student of history. Okay. You have just forgotten the history of yesterday. William Ruto comes here with an Azola narrative which transcends the tribe, and he conducts an election like 1963 without involving the tribe. So it's not true that we are eternally tied to our tribe. You see, the fact that Njom became the minister, that child in Mombasa who didn't have a job, that child still does not have a job. That family that could not put food on the table, they still cannot put food on the people are not stupid. They have woken up. Trust in me. Kenyans have woken up. They know that when you get the job, it's for you and your family. Okay? If you can work for us and change the economy and put the money in my pocket, then I'm for you. So Ruto proved that the tribe is irrelevant in an election if you have a cross-cutting theme that you zero to the Kenyans. It will dissolve the tribe. Ruto dissolved the tribe in the last election.
Just allow me to push back. It's important to look at the substance and then to look at the form. If you analyze the voting patterns for the last elections, how come the president didn't get, President Ruto did not get, say, 50% of the Luo votes? Because if people are just voting on philosophies, whether you're on the left, whether you're on the right, whether you're talking about inflation, the jobs created, like the conversation we see in the US, how come even for instance, how come he decided to elect, or rather select, the way they say, the running mate from, say, Central Province, and not Kisii or not Giriama, if the only consideration was about economics and it was about Pesa Mfukoni? Everything we are discussing here, in theory, there's no tribalism in Kenya. All of us look at inflation and the jobs are created. But when you look at the substance of a form,
I'd like to answer you on that one. William Ruto didn't have to select Gachagua as a running mate to win the vote of the Mount Kenya region. He didn't have.
Really?
He had made himself a brand. Okay, with the Asola narrative. He had made himself a brand. So I don't think he got the Mount Kenya vote because Gachagua was in that ticket. Most people who voted for William Ruto across this country, they voted because for the first time in the history of Kenya, they saw in him someone who can address their personal problems, which was from 1963, we have been manufacturing poverty. Okay, we have manufactured poverty. From 1963, we never had a Kenyan government. We only had an extension of the colonial state. You see, in government has its own consciousness, just like an individual. So the consciousness of the government of Kenya has been exploitative. There has been a government for exploiting Kenyans. So Kibaki comes and briefly gives us a Kenyan government. We saw it in Kibaki. And then Uhuru comes and goes back to exploitation. So people in Ruto, when he talked about uplifting the life of these Mama Mboga, and people saw a president who is going to be a Kenyan, maybe Kibaki style better than Kibaki.
I mean,
they went for that and they forgot the tribe.
How many votes did Mr. Raila Odinga get from central Kenya?
That one.
Well,
we are assuming that there's no
Ruto marketed
tribalism.
himself very well. That's the point I'm making.
Okay, how many votes did President Ruto get from Luo Nyanza?
I assume the same answer that Prof gave would be the same thing here. But if we were rooting this conversation and just bring it back to where we are today and looking at the reasons as to why we're now having a conversation of putting Raila Odinga at that seat on a continental level and what it means for Kenya today. And I'm still coming back to that question. What does it mean?
Actually, it does mean a lot, trust me, because that is the executing agency for AU, and there is a lot of planning going on at the Commission.
Is there?
Yes, there's quite a bit of developmental planning going on. You know, there is track roads, which are supposed to traverse the continent. Infrastructure projects, sometimes they are planned there, which connect the states. Trained, okay? We are not managing our resources very well as a continent. There is too much of exploitation by the foreigners. Raila Odinga, with his Pan-Africans, he could put his foot down there and develop a continental-wide policy, which now also would include quite a bit of include Kenya. But also some project which come to AU. I don't want to say that, but I guess I'm just going to say it. Being there, you could throw them to Kenya. So and
that is where we are.
So there's some benefit for a Kenyan holding that position. Mokua saying that we are not well represented in international bodies. The reason for that is because we don't have our people, a lot of our people in the international bodies.
That's destabilize what the AU is about in the very first place. Because if we look at the origins of, and it was essentially the OAU, which is the Organization for African Unity, right? Before then, it now morphed into what it is today. And there are many, very many adjectives that have been used to describe the AU. One of them, which I myself have used on occasion, toothless, powerless, in terms of what it's been able to do to actually bring together African states and get them to move as one unified body. I don't know that since the 60s when, Resti saw Gaddafi, and you can say whatever you want, had an idea. And he said, you know what? We can actually probably forge on better together because we have the resources, we have the numbers, we have the people. Today, when we look at the AU, are we seeing that has actually been done? And it is very important that we ask the question, because if you're looking at it from a Kenyan perspective, are you sending a man to the AU? He could win, he may not win, but are you sending a man to an organization who for the last 20 years, in many opinion, have actually not been able to bring forth the tenets of African unity that it was originally designed to do?
President Kagame was in charge of, he was given the responsibility by his peers to come up with reforms to reform the institution. So a number of proposals were made. But what the committee found out, which did not even need to do without any research, that as constituted today, the African Union is inefficient and it's ineffective. And he said that the only thing they do is clerical duties. Because they don't have financial autonomy, they have to rely on contributions, which most of the time are voluntary, or you wait for China or the US to give you resources. And then number two, even when you are the chairman of the Africa Union Commission, you still don't have absolute powers, for lack of a better word, to appoint your staff. The member states will determine who is going to be your deputy, who are going to be the commissioners, who are going to be the directors. So you can't even hold them accountable. So if the reforms as initiated by President Kagame and right now with President Ruto, if they are not effected, Mr. Raila Odinga will have to rely on his persuasion skills for anything to happen. And unlike, say, in the European Union, where there is a bit of autonomy, financial, operational, for Mr. Raila Odinga, even at some stage, he may not have a budget for his international travel if there are no member contributions and if the development partners do not come on board. And while doing research for the show, the figures are just amazing. For instance, the European Union, with their member states, about 27, they've got 32,000 staffers full-time, and that is excluding people on short-term contracts. While the African Union, taking care of 55 countries, has got 1,720 as the beginning of the year, and most of them are on short-term contracts. So they go to meetings, they prepare amazing reports, but those reports have to wait for validation and direction by the presidents, and these presidents do not want to give African Union any power. Now, if you compare it to the European Union, their contributions are made every country contributes based on a proportional wealth of the nation. So it's an income determined by proportional wealth. And then the European Union levies custom duties for imports from outside the EU, and then a bit of VAT from all the member states. So actually, they've got some financial resources. The same situation does not obtain for Africa Union.
How long is this tenure that we've been talking about?
It is 4 years, renewable ones. But I want to say this. I think, you are really right, because we never really had a strong chair of that commission. And I think Raila is fairly strong. I think given Raila is independent, you see, institutions are changed by people who are in them. It is the people who change the institutions. So if you get somebody, Raila is a fairly an independent-minded person, and I actually think he can be a perfect Pan-African if he enters there. If he were to enter, he could change all these dynamics. You see, our problem is we don't have Africans as presidents. Okay? We have all these Muzungu lackeys. Some of them selected by the Muzungu. Because when you get an African like this young man from Burkina Faso, and you make him the chairman of AU,
things will move.
Things will move. You will make people even contribute, because they can see now what they are doing. They can be inspired. You understand? So if Raila goes there, he can become a real Pan-Africanist, this man, and change the African Union, and probably move them towards proper unity, because this continent is worthy. We just allow ourselves to be used by the Muzungu, and even the Muzungu select our leaders. So, for me, I think Kenya need to do everything it has to get Raila there.
Okay. You know, there's something that a question I want to pose to Professor. Human beings react on two things: the pain or a pleasure principle. Now, tell me what pain or pleasure the chairman of the African Union Commission can inject to African heads of state and governments to follow a particular direction.
No, you don't need pain or pleasure. What you need is persuasive skills.
Yeah, but persuasion can be painful or pleasure.
Is ability to explain the position, to explain our position. You see, Raila talked about our gold, he talked about our minerals, he talked about all this world being squandered as it is right now. So if he can convince them it is in our best interest, okay, I saw a huge, I think you people have seen in the media, a 28-kilometer Chinese lorry is carrying sand from Zimbabwe. It's not sand they are carrying. It's minerals they are taking to China. So if Raila is able to make the African Union pass resolutions that all these things are processed within the continent, and he can do it. You see, Raila has the force. You can compare him with Mohamed Faki. Mohamed Faki maybe was just a diplomat. Raila has a very forceful character, which can remake the African Union. You know, our own have been chaotic, Matato, if you remember. But one person came and made a difference in Michoki, even though, of course, we are back to where he was. So it is individuals who make institutions. So Raila going to be the historical moment where he comes and he changes all what you are saying overnight. And we become Africans and we start controlling our resources. And these shortages, resource poverty that you are saying becomes a thing of the past.
Yeah, then you did also ask a question that I didn't get a chance to make my contribution.
Yes, please.
That what does it mean for Kenya? I'll go to India. At some stage, the president of the World Bank is said to be Indian. The Prime Minister of India is said to be Indian. And at some stage, the UK Prime Minister was Indian. Now, just imagine during international meetings, you've got 3 powerful personalities with the same sort of
Origin.
DNA.
Yeah.
Now, this is what we need for Kenya. We need to go all over the world. And so that when Raila Odinga is the chairman of the African Union Commission is going for a meeting, you have another Kenyan in a senior role and another Kenyan in a senior role, so that we now take decisions which are sensitive to our interests as Kenyans.
Okay, can I ask?
Argument.
Sorry, Sisi. I want to ask these two gentlemen if they will stay for further breakfast.
Please go ahead.
Can we keep you till 10 o'clock?
Yeah, you
Let's
can.
continue, because I think the conversation still continue. And Siti will even give you the problem again. How about that for a good reason?
Yes.
Right?
The
Something
same
to
one or a different one?
Well, I don't know. It's up to him. But today's proverb, and I know Siti's question is coming.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.